You are also a developmental psychologist, and you're head of the 0 to 3 Center at in Eugenio Emilia in Bosisio in Italy.
Parini.
Parini, okay.
Yes.
And I hope you're well in the northern part of Italy. You don't have any corona?
Yes, we have a lot of coronavirus around here because we live in Lombardia.
Yeah, but you are well yourself, I hope.
Fortunately, yes, I'm fine. My family are fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you have been so much involved in this area. You are one of the members of our topic expert group, of course, and you also have been involved in the scenes, or are involved in the scenes research group, and also in the close collaboration in the program as well. So, but your interest, as I have understood it, is main at the latest in the last years focused on neuroendocrine and epigenetic changes associated with early adverse experience. And so we are very eager to hear your thinking of how the bonding and so forth. So please go ahead. I don't know. Keep your video open as well, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I turn off because my internet connection is a bit unstable.
Okay.
So again, hello everyone. Thanks for attending to the meeting today. I would say that it's a stressful time, and as you know, in Italy, and not in Italy, most of the people is in isolation and separation have a possible psychological cost. For sure, this situation can have a negative impact on the mental well-being of many people. To some extent, isolation and separation puts ourselves in the shoes of preterm infant and their parents who are very often isolated and separate each to other. Anyway, I keep thinking we should be able to do real life as lived, even when we are under the stress, as actually how preterm infant and their family do every single day at the beginning of their life. So I'm very happy with the decision to go on with the conference, scientific discussion, and get inspired by science. Because so I wish to thank Bjorn and Stina for not only for this invitation, but also for giving all of us a message of hope. Next. I'm grateful also to all the staff of EFSCNI for efforts that has been done for the standard. Very impressive work. Needless to say that parental infant bonding is a critical piece of neonatal care, but in typical developmental infants and the fragile infants like preterm. And today, I would like to discuss some points about this topic. Next, please. As you know, there is a strong link between parental bonding and physical proximity. These behaviors are quite interwoven, and I'm supposed that to speak just of skin to skin is rather reductive. But for mother and infant, skin to skin implies a multisensor stimulation, including the auditory, olfactory, visual, vestibular, and tactile stimulation. Maybe we can define this body-to-body exchange embodied interaction. Embodied interaction starts during pregnancy and the event of a preterm birth. And in the event of a preterm birth, this process may be disrupted, leading to a suboptimal bonding condition. While an increasing number of studies suggest that less than optimal bonding has a negative impact on several infant developmental areas, we have also lots of evidence about the beneficial role of early embodied interaction. Next, thank you. Many studies suggest that maternal infant bonding could be described as a co-regulation. That is when parents use her skill to regulate the internal environment of an infant, homeostasis, as well as ourselves. There has been suggested several reasons for why homeostasis can support infant development in the context of the mother-infant relationship. For example, embodied interaction and interpersonal touch promote a quiet alert state and emotional regulation, which in turn promote cognitive and social emotional development. These are very good reasons for supporting early embodied interaction between mother and infant, but recent research suggests a new view for why embodied interaction could be so important for infant social development. Embodied interaction, physical proximity, and touch could contribute to the infant's bodily perception. The infant's bodily perception is the ability to perceive own body as separate from other entities and provides the basis of self-perception. In turn, this is crucial for engaging in social interaction, interpreting and predicting the thoughts, action, and the behavior of others. But what do you mean by the word embodied? And why use it? From a general point of view, it simply means involving the body. In other words, embodied depends on the body and the brain's processing and integration system for bodily signals. Embodied interaction are established at the very onset of our life, when a full self-awareness is not yet constituted. However, the absence of a self-awareness doesn't preclude the possibility of a rudimental perception of self. Next, thank you. In my presentation, I would discuss how the early embodied interaction could be related to the formation of the infant body self. I think it's a neglected area of scientific investigation. This is a bit surprising given that, as Biomaster has claimed, the self starts with the body. In fact, human experience is basically a me, which resides in my body. The feeling that experience are bound to the body and our experience of a unitary entity is considered to be one of the most incredible features of the human beings. I will overview, given that the multisensor integration is considered to be a central process for bodily self-perception, I will overview of the topic from a developmental perspective. I will also discuss the role played by the maternal touch in multisensor integration, and finally, the contribution of the maternal body in this process. Before I go on, let me make a clarification. Of course, most of the research about the formation of infant body itself involves full-term infant. Thus, caution needs in a standing of this result to preterm baby. However, I think that the research about the formation of infant body self in full-term infant has several elements for understanding how much the early embodied interaction is important in this diet. Next, please. As I have mentioned, multisensor integration is the process with information from the different sensory modalities to be integrated by your nervous system, which underlie the bodily self-perception. But what about the multisensor integration and body self-perception in infancy? Next. While there are no conclusive findings about the exact time of emergence of the sense of body self, recent study indicates that processing of information from the body begins during the first year of life, and more likely, a process that starts in utero. These studies on the ontogeny of human body perception in infants suggest that no conceptual form of bodily self-awareness, a rudimental sense of self, is already present in the first month of life. The formation of bodily self is hypothesized more by information. Physical contact would facilitate multisensor integration. All this suggests that during infancy, the bodily self is dependent only by maturity. It depends upon the relational experience of body-to-body interaction, that is, embodied interaction. Next, please. Before the next slides, please. Okay, go on. Thank you. Before I go on with some evidence about the multisensor integration of body-related information in infants, let me say something about more general somatosensor processes related to the body perception. To some extent, the body is the most multisensory object in the world. In fact, the body perception requires the processing and integration of different bodily signals. Here you can see the classic schema of somatosensory inputs, which include, for example, perceptual information, such as a visual auditory input, but also internal information through interception. That is the sense of physiological. In adult, all this information in adult is integrated with body memory. But before I go on this, what we can say about self-perception in infants? Next, please. Next slide. Okay, thank you. That is, has infant's brain the feature for being conscious? Functional magnetic resonance imaging of the newborn brain show highest activity in the somatosensory, auditory, and visual cortex, but less activity in association area and the prefrontal cortex as compared with adult. Also, findings of a big project about the connectoma suggest that a normal term age, a complete set of all
you disappeared there. You disappeared. The connection was bad. Try again. We can't hear you, Rosario.
Can I go on?
Now we hear you, yes.
Okay, please press a button. Okay, perfect, thank you. Overall, this finding seems to suggest that newborn brain have structural and functional organization which could support a sense of a body. Based on this kind of evidence, Professor Lagernkratz, that all has suggested that newborn brain has several features for being conscious, aware of itself and the environment. And infants can feel and integrate multisensory, several multisensory modalities. Next, please. Of course, bodily sensations are associated with the need of regulating homeostasis and the behavioral drives that are necessary to maintain the integrity of the body. But through self-exploration and perception of a contingent sensory motor information, infants learn what belongs to their body. This seems to suggest that human newborn have a basic sense of self, a rudimentary distinction between representation of their body and those of other people. And as I have mentioned, press button please, before, in this process, the key role is played by the integration skills. So let me show some example of this skill in infants. Next, please. Here you can see a very nice study. Authors examine the looking behavior of newborn presented with visual, tactile, synchronous, and asynchronous cues. In the synchrony condition, the newborn was touched on the cheek with a paintbrush on the congruent location, and the stroke perfectly matched the brush stroke. The infant's corresponding cheek displayed on the screen. In the out of synchrony condition, the newborn was again touched on the cheek, but the tactile stimulation was delayed with regard to the brush stroke displayed on the screen by 5 seconds. In the first hour of life, infants look longer at the video of another newborn face if it is stroked by its brush when their own face is brushed in a synchrony way, rather than in an out of synchrony way. Importantly, this preference disappeared in both conditions when the newborn look at the infant's face in an inverted presentation. This finding suggests, in other words, that intermodal detection of synchrony provides important information allowing infants to differentiate themselves from others. And this finding supports the hypothesis that the human newborn have a basic sense of bodily self. Next, please. Of course, the infant's brain is not mature. Thank you. Now, Stina, you should go step by step pressing the button. I would say, okay, but okay, it's fine. Okay. Of course, the infant's brain is mature enough for a complete multisensor integration, and the recent study suggests that the development of this process is not predeterminate. It becomes increasingly more specialized with experience, and a very interesting thing is that along with other processes involved in brain maturation, early embodied interaction and interpersonal tactile stimulation could be implicated in integrating information between modalities. Here you can you have an example of this. 8 months old infants heard pseudo work, but while they were tactile, that is multimodal audio tactile condition, and non-tactile, that is unimodal audio condition. After this phase, please press the button, brain activity, EEG, was measured during the perception of the same word. The results highlight that compared to the audio condition, the audio tactile condition was associated with the higher brain activity in the left temporal region and in the middle frontal region. This is a neural evidence that a multimodal condition, which include touch stimulation, supports higher brain activity, press button please, possibly by integration process. Results like this offer evidence that the multimodal interaction between caregivers and the infants in a natural context might contribute to binding several forms of information in infant's brain. Next. We have just seen that the integration of exteroceptive signal play a critical role in generating our sense of self. But recent studies suggest that integration of interoceptive signal is also crucial for bodily self-perception. Importantly, interception is strongly associated with touch stimulation. Let's see in which way. Next. First of all, I would say something about interoception. Interception involves the detection and the processing of several multisignals from the body, such as temperature, itch, pain, cardiac signal, respiration, hunger, and touch. It is defined as the sense of internal state of the body. In adults, this sensation are thought useful to maintain homeostasis, to infer emotional states, and also to provide a sense of self. In other words, interoception has been associated with the generation of subjective feelings and self-perception. Please, next. Of course, but what about us? Next, please. The first point about the role of interception in early infant development is to establish if young babies perceive internal sensation from their bodies. This study provides evidence about this possibility. Meister and colleagues have developed a task which can measure how sensitive an infant is to their own heartbeat. And one of the signals from interception system. During the task, 5-month-old infants were shown an animate character that either moved in synchrony with their own heartbeat or out of synchrony with their heartbeat. The infants spent longer looking at the character that was moving out of synchrony than the one moving in the synchrony. Please press button, suggesting that even at this age, early age, infant can sense their own interceptive signal. The next one. Thank you. Interception has been linked with insular cortex activation. Importantly, this brain region is strongly involved in the regulation of homeostasis and in the somatosensory perception with respect to pleasant tactile stimulation. Furthermore, it has been hypothesized that anterior insula integrates sensory signals and body schema network, which involve different cerebral area, such as parietal and the frontal region, creating a neural representation of the body into an embodied form of self-awareness. Next, please. Insula does a lot of things, and a very important aspect of insula is that is also involved in the empathy and in the interpersonal bonding. Together with the cingulate and the frontal cortex, the insula is active in the stimulus situation of empathic recognition of others' emotional experience and in the processing of emotional bond. Press button, please. Thus, Stina, thank you. Thus, insular cortex could be the neural hub for the integration of somatosensory information and social perception coming from the outside with interceptive inputs functional to body homeostasis. So you can see you can imagine how much important is this area, this brain area for the mothers. Mother use this this area for recognize emotion of their baby. So it's very, this activation, this area, the activation of this area is very linked to emotional, to bonding. Next slide, please. But of course, one can wonder if this cerebral area is active, present during the development. And actually, it is amongst the earliest cortical region to develop, and it is at an advanced maturational stage from 27 weeks of gestation. This indicates that the insular cortex could have an early involvement in the elaboration of somatosensory stimuli at an early maturation level, to which the fetus and the newborn are exposed. At this point, I'm sure all of you are confused. In fact, one can wonder which is the link among interception, insular activation, touch stimulation, and so on. The link is the C-tactile fiber system. Please button the next slide. Next slide. Recent neurophysiological studies have documented the existence of two dual touch systems consistent of two neural pathways, one subserving discriminative touch and the other affective touch. When we are touched or we touch something, somebody, the stimuli is processed in terms of its exteroceptive discriminatory information content via fast conducting peripheral nerve pathways reacting to primary somatosensory cortical areas. However, an increasing body of evidence is establishing that there is a specialized submodality of touch sensing and processing its affective properties. The latter is encoded and processed by a specific fiber called C-tactile afferent that respond optimally to the gentle caressing touch, typically of nurturing care. The C-tactile afferents project mainly to the dorsal posterior insula and to the brain network involved in the social perception processing. Despite this dual tactile response to lesion touch clearly assume a particle valence in the interpersonal relationship. Next, even more interesting, C-tactile afferents are sensitive to temperature, discharging to skin temperature stimuli. Also, C-tactile fiber optimal firing response to gentle skin shocking is between 1 to 110 centimeters per second. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that this stimulation feature corresponds to self-reported pleasant perception of touch, leading to the hypothesis that this fiber have evolved in all social mammals to encode the social affective and rewarding dimension of the touch. Only, but even more important for us, this speed is exactly the speed that parents use when they gently stroke their babies, 110 centimeters per second, not more than, not less than the speed range. In adult, gentle touch leads to widespread activation of a network of brain regions which comprise area involved in social perception and social cognition, including insula. But one could wonder is there evidence that gentle touch leads of insula in infants? Next, please. Although the research is at the very beginning, recent neuroimaging studies targeting the insular and the suboptimal cortex in 2-month-old babies report that slow stroking compared to fast stroking activate insular cortex. In a couple of studies, one using an infrared technology and the other using the fMRI, researchers have examined the influence of touch on the brain of babies aged about 2 months. The researchers found that several areas of the brain respond to stroking, but the insular cortex was particularly involved when researchers struck the infant by a slow touch stimulation, that is between 3 and 10 centimeters per second. Thus, we have evidence that gentle touch sensors are virtually active from birth and maybe before. And this mechanism seems to work in young babies in a like adult equivalent manner, that is by the insular activation. Next, please. These findings are fascinating, and using the same experimental design, it would be nice to examine if insular cortex is also active in preterm infant. That's exactly what Eleonora Mascheroni, a young colleague of mine, is conducting at my lab. Last year, she won a starting grant of Italian Ministry of Health, titled Skin-to-Skin Contact in NICU, Caregiving Touch and Neuro-Related Slow Stroking Touch Stimulation in Preterm Infant, MRI study. The main idea is to examine potential link between the skin-to-skin experience, interaction in NICU, and brain activation associated with gentle touch. We have just started a couple months ago with a few of Preterm Infant, the control group. So I hope we are able to show you our results soon, let's say at least after the coronavirus outbreak. Next, please. At this point, what could we learn in infant body cell perception? Let me show this, just to clear up some points. First, we have seen that infants have the capacity to perceive their own body, for example, using multisensor integration. Second, it's unlikely that this skill depends only on a neuromaturation process, but rather is integrated by body-to-body connection. Third, interpersonal touch is processed by C fibers and by the brain area they project to insula could support the perception of the infant body self. The next one. Let me say something more about the bonding at this point. We know that mother and infant synchronize their body during embodied interaction. That is during tactile stimulation and physical contact. That is during tactile stimulation and physical contact. Of course, this body attunement supports infant adaptation to life outside of the womb, promoting a better regulation. However, the importance of early embodied interaction could go well beyond this aspect. Francis McGlone and I have just written a paper in which we posit that embodied interaction could assume a specific role on the perception of the body in infants. Specifically, touch could enhance the early subject feeling of the body, supporting multisensor integration and facilitating the interoceptive sensitive in infants. The next one. Thank you. When we speak about bonding related to skin contact, I think it would be reasonable to treat an additional point, the role played by the mother's body. In fact, if we agree on the importance of a body interaction, then we needed to consider it and not only focus on the infant's body. In other words, it will be of interest to understand what is the contribution of the maternal body in this process. The next, please. Of course, the idea is not new. For example, the role of a maternal body has been considered in the calming cycle theory by Welch and Ludwig. This is just that earliest emotional relationship between the infant and the mother begins in utero through subconscious co-conditioning of the pair's autonomic nervous system. Such very early autonomic learning between mother and infant is the primary factor that helps the infant form emotional relationship with others. Autonomic learning besides not physiological and behavioral autonomic co-regulation between the pair that triggers various subconscious The next, thank you, the next one. Coming single theory proposes several ideas that advance our understanding of embodied interaction. For example, the idea that the mother and the infant co-regulate one another visual oxytocin level, show a Pavlovian condition mechanism of the gut. However, the theory does not include the recent findings about the role of C-tactile fibers and of the maternal interceptive sensitivity. For example, maternal tracking is not only tuned to the stimulation of C-tactile fibers in infants, but stroking velocities, stroking speed is significantly correlated to maternal interception as measured by heart rate, suggesting that maternal affection match behavior may be moderated by aspect of maternal interception. Also, the mother's ability to perceive, thus the mother's ability to perceive her own internal signal might further support the responsivity to her infant's cues. And we have in some indirect evidence of this possibility. The next one. In this slide, you can see findings from the first study in which researchers have examined interception sensitivity in the parent's brain. Feldman and colleagues used the fMRI to examine whether interception sensitivity in the parent's brain during the first months of parenting combines with sensitivity in parenting predict children's somatic symptoms 6 years later. Here you can see the greater activation of the parent on the right side of the slide. You can see the greater activation of the parent anterior insula in the first months of life was associated with lower child somatic problem at 6 years. So the scatter plots show significant negative correlation between activation of the parent anterior insula in time 1 and child somatic symptoms in time 3 when the child was 6. Authors speculate that the early embodied interaction could promote in the child a subjective awareness of emotional states and body perception, which may reduce the likelihood of the child's being on the somatization continuum, ranging from middle body misperception to severe somatoform symptoms. The next, please. Thank you. At this point, one could wonder how these findings and this view could inform the skin-to-skin practice with preterm infants and their mothers. Before I go on that, please let me show a couple of things more. Please, the next one. It could be this. Assume that the suboptimal bonding could have an impact.
Rosario.
Yes. Yeah.
Take from go from here. We didn't hear you.
Okay. Start again.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we assume that the suboptimal bonding could have an impact on body cell perception in preterm, but do we have any evidence to support this? Recently, my colleague and I have tried to get clarification on this point. A group of school-age children born preterm without neurological outcomes was assessed by a visual body recognition task. I have no time to explain the task, but the result is, compared to the full-term children, preterm children showed alteration in body representation at the levels of body visual perceptual processing and of the body schema. We have no data about the early skin-to-skin contact in this group of preterm, but overall, our findings suggest that even after several years, children born preterm could have some kinds of difficulties in the body-related information processing. The next one. On the mother side, suboptimal bonding could have an impact on the mother's skills in the processing the infant body signal. Yes, we have some result about this. We have explored the association between maternal sensitivity and the maternal visual perceptual process in perceiving the infant's body, but in mother of preterm infant and mother of full-term infant, when the infant were 6 months old. Again, I'm no time to explain the experimental design, but I want to tell you just the main result. Mother of preterm infants had the less refined maternal perception of own infant's body. This finding suggests, please press button, Tina. This finding seems to suggest that less than optimal early and body interaction can affect the implicit maternal knowledge of the infant's body, which in turn can affect the maternal perceptual processing of infant body. Next. In sum, there is evidence that suboptimal bonding in preterm diets could have a long-term impact on the body-related information processing, in body-related information processing, both in preterm children and their mothers. Again, how these findings could inform the skin-to-skin practice with preterm infants and their mothers. Of course, there are many aspects that we could consider here, such as, for example, maternal tactile biography or maternal beliefs about personal touch. But I would like to remind you the findings of studies which have inquired the link between interception and empathy in general population. The first neuroimaging study found that interceptive sensitivity enhanced neural activity during empathy in anterior insula. Not only, but it is also been documented the link between interception sensitivity and empathy. Therefore, focus on parental interceptive sensitivity in early embodied interaction offer a new perspective for promoting contribution that mother's body could provide in infant body self-development. In fact, if maternal empathy were, at least partially, associated with the accuracy with which mothers perceive their own body signal, then maternal interceptive sensitivity might facilitate parental inference about infants' physiological and emotional states. Of course, press the button. As a consequence, it could be important to promote the mother's ability to perceive her own internal signal during skin-to-skin pratic or embodied interaction. So the maternal awareness of our own body is incredibly important during the skin-to-skin. Next, please. I'm at the end of my talk, but let me say a couple of things more very, very quickly. Next, please. I would like to conclude my presentation with some speculation. I like to think that the experience of being touched might be linked to the discovery of Owen's own body by the interpersonal gentle touch provided by caregivers, not only by parents. So I like to think that each time you touch in gentle way a preterm infant, we are promoting a special form of neuroprotective care, the infant's ability to form accurate representation of bodily sensation. In other words, how, when, how much, and where the caregiver touch infant could sculpt the sense of infant body self. I also link to think that embodied interaction not so only support well-being and growth in preterm infant, but it co-creates the infant's body self. The next, please. In fact, I have tried to show you that early embodied interaction is much more than co-regulation. Press button, please. That start point of this could be summarized with the Chanukka words. Chanukka suggests, before an infant meets mother mind, the infant meets mother's body. But, please, the button, again, one more. But the contrary is equal true. Before mother meets infant's mind, mother meets infant's body. So bodies come first. And along with several other interactive processes, embodied interaction make embodied meaning within and between individuals, which increase the coherence, complexity of each infant, and likely parent sense of body self, establishing reciprocal awareness. Next one. As I told, this is a deadline, but maybe it turned out to be an opportunity, the more solution, the more wish to be in touch among people. I hope this wish will be strong even after the epidemic will be over. Thus, beyond the coronavirus, I wish you always to have nice, affective touch during your interpersonal life. And thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very, very much, Rosario. I'm always so intrigued by your scientific views of these very important natural things. And I thought it was quite comforting that you said that the insula has an early maturation, as early as week 27. And that, I think was very comforting for us that we think that early skin to skin, even in the immature babies, are important. Also, I remember the first time I sat skin to skin with my first child. I would like to ask you a question. Don't you think that also that experience actually could mature my insula, even if I was 26 years old or something like that? Are there hopes for us that have not had that good maturation of our insula because we have abusive mothers or others? Please comment.
I agree, and but the point for me, the point is not the infant body, but the embodied interaction. We are too much focused on the infant body. We need to have a wide view, and we need to include in this interaction the maternal body and the sensation, the feelings, and what the mother can do with their own body. The awareness of personal sensation, feeling, it's crucial to permit the diet to biosynchronous each to other.
Yes, and I would argue that it also can happen in males, in fathers, and also even if you're old, almost 70 years old, I still hope I develop my insula.
In fact, the touch is the first sensory system, but also is the last one.
Ah, thank you.
So we can
thank you.
go.
I will tell my wife.
But yes, I'm getting old. My hope is that my touch fiber can work until my death. Thank you.
Thank you. Gives me hope.
Rosario, I have a question. Often we hear staff say to parents, and it's probably right, when we observe babies and preterm infants and you touch them a lot, they get overtaxed and they have aversive behaviors. What are your comments on that?
You know, there's a nice study from Fabrizi. It has been published a couple of years ago, and in this study, the team, the researcher, showed that there is the possibility that even the touch is very painful for preterm baby. So we use static touch instead of stroke. But anyway, I think that it's not important only the stroke, but it's important the skin to skin, the sensation, and the maternal is like a multi-integration process for the baby, for infant body. This is very important. We are integration. Our brain integrates the information. So we needed to understand that the infant brain, even in so fragile baby, the brain continues to integrate the information. And the most important information comes from the maternal body.